Space was never truly silent, not to those who listened. The hum of distant stars, the faint pulse of energy fields, and the whisper of dying worlds carried across the void like memories. Yet, to the humans aboard the starship Eidolon, it felt like silence, heavy, suffocating silence before the coming storm. Captain Alara Voss stood at the viewport, staring into the endless darkness. Once she had loved the stars. Now they only reminded her of what was lost. Earth was gone, consumed by orbital bombardments from the Qatari Dominion, a reptilian empire that saw humanity as nothing more than an infection spreading across the galaxy. What remained of mankind were fragments, scattered fleets, broken colonies, and wounded survivors trying to remember what hope felt like. Behind her, the bridge lights flickered. Systems were failing again. Supplies were running thin. But her crew, only 100 men and women, never complained. They were Terrans, and Terrans didn't surrender. Status report, Alara said quietly. Lieutenant Ryan Cole, a young officer barely past 20, looked up from his console. Engine stable, ma'am. Power grid is holding at 40%. Long-range sensors. Still jammed. Qatari ships are hunting in the sector. Alara nodded slowly. Then we stay quiet. No signals, no lights. We wait. The Eidolon drifted through the Black Sea, silent and unseen. It was one of the last human warships, a relic from the old Terran defense fleet. Its hull was scarred, armor burned from plasma fire, but its heart still beat. In its cold corridors walked people who had lost everything, families, planets, and futures, yet refused to die quietly. The crew had grown used to the dark. They whispered stories of the past to keep their spirits alive. Tales of cities glowing under blue skies, of oceans filled with laughter, of a time before the stars became battlegrounds. In the mess hall, Engineer Marcus Hale sat with his team, staring at a flickering holomap. They say the Qatari are spreading toward the Orion Belt, he muttered. They won't stop until every human world burns. Let them come, growled Sergeant Tara Briggs, her voice sharp as steel. If they want to fight, they'll get one. We still have teeth, Marcus sighed. Teeth? We have half a fleet, no allies, and dwindling ammo. Humanity's done, Tara. Briggs slammed her fist on the table. No, humanity's not done. We're just waiting. You ever seen a storm gather? It's quiet at first, but when it hits, nothing survives. Her words hung in the air. Even Marcus couldn't argue. In the command chamber, Captain Alara activated the old communication logs, fragments of distress calls, desperate messages from across the galaxy. This is New Series Station. They're here. Qatari ships inbound. We can't. Colony Arcadia Prime has fallen. God help us all. If anyone can hear this, tell Earth we fought to the end. Each voice faded into static, like ghosts vanishing into space. Alara closed her eyes. She remembered Earth's final transmission. A mother holding her child as the sky burned, saying, "We'll meet again among the stars." That memory was why she kept fighting. The console beeped suddenly, a faint pulse on the radar. Ryan's eyes widened. Captain, movement on the outer perimeter. Unknown contact, Alara straightened. How many? One? No, 2 ships. Small signatures. Not Qatari pattern, could be. Human? The bridge went silent. Hope flickered. Fragile, dangerous hope. Open visual, she ordered. The screen came alive, 2 battered vessels drifting toward them, running silent just like the Eidolon. Their hulls bore the faded emblem of the Terran resistance, the last remnants of humanity's military. By the stars, Ryan whispered. They're alive. Minutes later, a signal broke through the static. This is Commander Jonah Rail of the Independence. To any surviving Terran forces, we need assistance. Our reactor is dying. Qatari patrol inbound. Coordinates transmitting now. Ilara's heart pounded. It was suicide to move. But if they didn't, those ships would die, and with them, another piece of humanity. She turned to her crew. We're going to get them. Ryan hesitated. Ma'am, if we break stealth, they'll see us. I know, Alara said firmly. But no one gets left behind. Not anymore. The order was given. The engines roared to life, breaking the long silence. For the first time in weeks, the Eidolon moved with purpose. Within hours, they reached the drifting ships. The Independence and the smaller Vigilant were half dead, hulls torn apart, airlocks leaking. As they began rescue operations, the stars around them shifted. The sensor screamed, "Captain!" Ryan shouted. "Multiple warp signatures inbound." Qatari cruisers, 6 of them. The storm had arrived. Alara's voice was steady. "All stations, battle positions. Arm weapons and bring the shield online. If this is where we stand, then we make it count." The Qatari ships emerged from the void like blades of silver fire. Their weapons charged, targeting the human vessels. But before they could strike, Eidolon's cannons roared to life. Bolts of plasma tore through the dark, ripping into alien hulls. Explosions bloomed across the black sky like dying suns. On the bridge, chaos reigned. Alarms, screams, orders. The humans fought like ghosts, silent, furious, unstoppable. One Qatari cruiser turned its weapons toward the Independence, ready to fire, but Eidolon rammed it head-on, tearing through metal and flame. The ship shuddered, alarms blaring, but Alara held the line. "Keep firing," she shouted. "For Earth." Hours passed. When the smoke cleared, the stars burned dimly over wreckage and silence. 4 Qatari ships were destroyed. 2 retreated. The Eidolon was crippled but still alive. Rian looked around the ruined bridge, whispering, "We did it. We actually did it." Alara stood tall, her uniform scorched, her voice calm. "No, Lieutenant. This was only the beginning." Outside, debris floated among the stars. The first sign that humanity had struck back. The silence had ended. The storm was coming. The fires of battle had faded, leaving only drifting wrecks and the quiet hum of dying systems. The Eidolon hung in the void, its hull scarred and broken, surrounded by the remains of Qatari cruisers. Once again, space had gone silent, but this time, the silence belonged to humanity. Captain Alara Voss stood on the damaged bridge, staring at the shattered viewports. Outside, fragments of alien metal glimmered like frozen lightning. The air smelled of smoke and ozone, and sparks danced across the deck. The crew moved quietly, exhausted yet alive. Lieutenant Ryan Cole limped to her side, his arm bandaged, uniform torn. "Reactor core is holding steady, Captain. Life support's at 30%, but we can patch it." His voice trembled, not from fear, but disbelief. They had survived what no one thought possible. Alara nodded. "Casualties?" Ryan's face darkened. 43 dead. 27 wounded. We lost the entire portside battery. He hesitated, then added softly, "But the Independence and Vigilant made it. They're alive because of us." Alara closed her eyes for a moment. Every name lost today would be remembered, not as victims, but as echoes of a species that refused to die quietly. Down in the hangar bay, the rescue teams worked tirelessly. Bodies were carried in silence, laid beneath the flickering emergency lights. Mechanics patched holes in the hull with trembling hands. No one spoke of victory. They all knew this was only a reprieve. Among the survivors from the Independence was Commander Jonah Rael, a man with sharp eyes and a soldier's calm. His ship was gone, but his pride remained untouched. He approached Alara later that cycle, his voice rough. "You saved us, Captain. I owe you my crew's lives." Alara replied evenly. "You'd have done the same." Rael gave a small, humorless smile. "Maybe, but you did more than that. You just gave the Qatari something they haven't felt in centuries. Fear." He gestured toward the wreckage outside. "They won't take this lightly. They'll come back with more." Alara turned toward the stars. "Then we'll be ready." That night, if night could exist in space, the Eidolon drifted silently while her people rested. Alara walked through the corridors, listening to the soft hum of the ship. The walls were dented and scorched, but every mark told a story, a reminder that they were still standing. She stopped near the memorial wall, a simple metal plate engraved with the names of every crew member lost since the fall of Earth. More names were being added tonight. Alara placed her hand against the cold surface and whispered, "Your fight isn't over. We'll carry it for you." In the command room, Commander Rael joined her. He carried a small data core salvaged from the Vigilant. "This came from our last recon before we were hit," he said. "We were tracking Qatari movements near the Perseus Gate. We found something strange." Alara frowned. "Strange how?" Rael activated the projection. A star map appeared. filled with Qatari patrol routes, supply chains, and then a black void, an area deliberately erased from the Dominion's navigation charts. No one's supposed to go there, Rael said. But our sensors picked up faint energy readings, human in origin. Ilara's breath caught. Human? Rael nodded. Could be a distress beacon. Could be a base. Whatever it is, the Qatari are trying to hide it. Rian leaned over the console. Captain, if that's true, it might be one of our lost colonies. Or something worse, Ilara murmured. But deep inside, a spark of hope ignited. A hidden beacon meant survivors. Maybe more humans out there, waiting, fighting. She turned to Rael. We'll investigate. Set a course for the Perseus Gate. The next hours were filled with preparation. The crew repaired what they could, salvaged ammo from wrecks, and rearmed the ship's plasma batteries. The Independence's surviving engineers worked side by side with the Eidolon crew, merging what little remained of humanity's two fleets. Sergeant Tara Briggs oversaw the armory. We're down to 20 torpedoes and a few drones, she reported. Make them count, Ilara replied. As the engines hummed to life, the bridge lights steadied, a heartbeat returning to the ship. The Eidolon turned toward the black region marked on the map, the erased sector. Days passed in uneasy quiet. The crew spoke less. They all knew they were flying into danger. Whispers spread, stories about the lost beacon, a ghost station hidden beyond the Qatari lines. Engineer Marcus Hale, ever the cynic, muttered, Maybe it's just bait. Maybe they're luring us in, Ryan answered calmly. Or maybe it's hope. And hope's worth chasing. When the ship reached the edge of the void, every sensor went dark. No signals, no readings. Just emptiness. Ilara's voice broke the silence. Bring us in slowly. The Eidolon drifted forward. Then faintly, a signal flickered on the display. A human distress code. Rian's eyes widened. It's real. It's old. Over a decade old. The screen crackled and a voice, weak and broken, came through the static. To any Terran vessel. This is Outpost Helios. Survivors remaining. Qatari experiment. They're not what they seem. Then the signal cut. Ilara's blood ran cold. They've been experimenting? Rael's jaw tightened. Looks like we're about to find out. Moments later, the void lit up. Dozens of energy signatures flared on the sensors. Not Qatari ships, but something different. Smaller, faster, and wrong. They're moving toward us, Ryan shouted. Reading? Biosignatures mixed with tech, like cyborgs. Ilara narrowed her eyes. Qatari experiments, Rael's voice was grim. They're using human DNA. The creatures appeared on the screen. Twisted forms of metal and flesh, human faces grafted to alien armor, eyes burning with artificial rage. Each one was a weapon, a mockery of what humanity once was. Briggs whispered, What have they done to us? Ilara's expression hardened. They wanted to make monsters out of men. She drew a deep breath. Now we'll show them what real monsters look like. The Eidolon powered its weapons. The crew took their stations. The storm they had survived before was nothing compared to what was coming now. Outside, the hybrid ships spread across the void, their engines glowing with stolen human energy. Inside, humanity's last defenders prepared to fight, not just for survival, but for the souls that had been twisted and lost. Ilara looked out at the stars one last time before battle. Her voice was steady, clear, defiant. Let the galaxy remember this day, when humanity stood alone, and the universe learned fear. The stars vanished as the Eidolon entered the Helios region, a graveyard of silence and shadows. Here, light itself seemed hesitant to exist. The void stretched endless and black, swallowing sound, swallowing courage. Every sensor on the ship struggled to read anything beyond a few kilometers. It was as if something in the darkness wanted to stay hidden. Captain Ilara Voss stood on the bridge, watching faint shapes drift past the viewport, twisted wrecks, scorched metal, and bones of forgotten vessels. Report, she ordered quietly. Lieutenant Ryan Cole's fingers danced across his console. Still no response from the Helios beacon. Radiation levels are high, but the distress code keeps repeating every 30 seconds. Commander Jonah Rael frowned. Whatever's down there, it's not just a ruin. Something's powering that signal. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. They had seen Qatari traps before, Broken ships transmitting fake human beacons, luring survivors to their deaths. But this one felt different. The code was old, genuine, one only the Terran military could have used. Ilara's voice broke the tension. "Bring us closer. Minimum speed. I want visual contact." The Eidolon drifted deeper into the dark. Minutes later, the shadows parted, revealing the shape of a massive space station orbiting a shattered moon. It was broken in half, spinning slowly. Its hull burned and silent, but faint lights still flickered inside. Ryan whispered, "That's it. Outpost Helios." Ilara narrowed her eyes. She's still alive. Somehow. The Helios station had once been a Terran research hub, one of the first human settlements beyond the Qatari frontier. Now it looked like a ghost, forgotten by time, haunted by something that refused to die. As the Eidolon approached, a sudden surge of static filled the comms. The old distress signal repeated, clearer this time, desperate and broken. "This is Dr. Amina Rael. If anyone hears this, they're coming back. The Qatari turned us into their own weapons. Don't let them find us again." Rael froze. "Dr. Amina Rael?" He whispered. "That's my sister." Ilara looked at him sharply. "She's alive?" "She was the lead scientist on Helios before the fall. We thought she died years ago." Ilara nodded once. "Then we're bringing her home." The docking sequence was dangerous. Half of Helios was spinning uncontrollably, and magnetic locks barely held. But the Eidolon managed to connect to one of the intact ports. "Boarding party ready," Sergeant Tara Briggs reported, loading her plasma rifle. Her team of Marines stood behind her, armored and grim. Rael adjusted his helmet. "I'm going in with them. If my sister's alive, I'll find her." Ilara placed a hand on his shoulder. "Stay sharp. And if that signal's a trap, I'll deal with it." Rael interrupted firmly. The airlock hissed open. Darkness greeted them. Inside Helios, everything was dead. Flickering lights illuminated corridors filled with debris, scorch marks, and dried blood. The air smelled of rust and decay. Briggs led the way, motion detector sweeping. No movement, but something feels off. Rael's flashlight caught glimpses of old Terran insignias on the walls. His chest tightened. He had grown up hearing stories about this place, humanity's frontier of discovery, where brilliant minds built the future. Now, it was just bones and shadows. As they advanced deeper, the faint hum of machinery echoed through the corridors. Then, a door hissed open ahead. Briggs raised her weapon instantly, but instead of Qatari or cyborgs, a human figure stepped into the light. She was thin, pale, wearing a torn lab coat. Her eyes were hollow but alive. "Jonah," she whispered. Rael's weapon lowered immediately. "Amina, my God, you're alive." She staggered forward and embraced him weakly. "I told them you'd come. I told them someone would." Briggs frowned. "Doctor, what happened here?" Amina looked at her with haunted eyes. "The Qatari didn't destroy us. They used us. They experimented on human DNA, merging it with their tech, trying to build the perfect hybrid soldier." Rael clenched his fists. "We've already seen them. They attacked us before we got here." Amina shook her head. "Those were early versions. The real ones. They're still here." At that moment, the lights flickered, and the walls seemed to move. Metal twisted, groaned. The floor beneath them pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. Briggs cursed. "What the hell?" Amina shouted. "They integrated the station's systems with organic cores. The station itself is alive." Before anyone could react, a loud screech filled the corridor. Panels burst open. From the walls crawled twisted figures, half metal, half human, glowing with blue veins of energy. They screamed in distorted human voices. "Contact!" "Open fire!" Briggs yelled. The Marines unleashed a storm of plasma fire. Blue bolts tore through the hybrids, splattering metal and flesh. But for every one that fell, 2 more emerged. Rael pulled Amina behind cover. "Ilara, this is Rael. We're under attack. Helios is compromised." On the Eidolon, alarms blared as hostile signals flooded the sensors. Ryan shouted, "Captain, the station's power core is charging. Something massive." Ilara's voice cut through the chaos. "Evacuate immediately." "We'll cover you." Inside the station, Briggs's team fought their way back toward the docking bay. The hybrids moved like predators, crawling on walls and ceilings, their voices whispering fragments of human words. Don't leave. Stay with us. Rail fired until his weapon overheated. Amina, how do we shut this thing down? She pointed toward a sealed chamber. The core's in there. If we destroy it, the station dies. So do the hybrids. Briggs kicked the door open. The chamber glowed with blinding light, a pulsating mass of organic energy fused with machinery. Human silhouettes were trapped inside, faces twisted in agony. Amina covered her mouth, trembling. They used the crew. To power it, Rail's voice was steady. Then let's set them free. He ripped open a plasma charge and placed it on the core. Everyone out, now. They sprinted through collapsing corridors as the station screamed. A living entity dying in pain. The Eidolon's sensors spiked. Captain, Ryan shouted. Helios core going critical. Ilara turned toward the viewport. Pull us back now. The engines roared. The docking clamps released. Seconds later, a blinding explosion erupted. The Helios station disintegrated in a storm of blue fire, scattering light across the void. Fragments of metal and bone rained down like shooting stars. In the aftermath, the Eidolon floated in silence once more. Rail sat in the medbay beside his sister. She was weak but alive. You did it, she whispered. You stopped them. Rail shook his head. No, we only burned one nest. There will be more. Ilara entered, her voice calm but heavy. You're right. If the Qatari are using human hybrids, then this war just changed. She looked out at the field of debris, the ashes of Helios. The universe thought humanity was finished. But now they'll see what happens when we fight for the fallen. The explosion of Helios had faded into memory, leaving only drifting embers in the dark. For days, the Eidolon traveled through empty space, carrying survivors, wounded, and ghosts. The crew spoke little. They had seen horrors that no human should ever witness. Their own people twisted into weapons. Captain Ilara Voss spent most hours in the command room, watching star charts flicker across the cracked screens. Every mark represented a lost world, a fallen colony, or a signal gone silent. Each dot of light was both a wound and a promise. Commander Jonah Rail entered quietly. His sister Amina, though pale, now stood beside him. Her eyes still carried the cold reflection of Helios's destruction. We need to decide where to go next, Rail said. We can't keep running forever, Ilara nodded. Agreed. But first we rebuild. The Forge of Hope, the Eidolon, was in ruins. Its engines coughed and every deck bore scars of battle. Yet its people refused to surrender. They patched holes with scraps of alien metal and turned the ship's mess hall into a workshop. Sergeant Tara Briggs oversaw the repairs. She barked orders as sparks flew and plasma welders hissed. Come on, people. We don't need pretty and we need working. Engineer Marcus Hale wiped sweat from his face. Half these parts are Qatari tech, Sarge. If this thing blows, it's on you, Briggs grinned. Then make sure it doesn't. For the first time since Earth fell, laughter echoed faintly through the corridors. Tired, rough laughter, but human. Even in ashes, humanity forged iron. A message from the void. 2 cycles later, a faint transmission reached them, a broken human code buried under static. Ryan, his eyes widening, leaned over his console. Captain, I've got something. It's coming from Sector 12, deep in Qatari territory. Ilara frowned. Can you clean it up? Static hissed, then a voice, weak, urgent, unmistakably human. This is Admiral Chen of the Terran Resistance. Survivors gathered at Outpost Vega. Need assistance. Qatari closing in. Rail clenched his fists. Chen's alive? He led the First Fleet during Earth's defense, Amina whispered. If Vega still stands, it could be humanity's last stronghold. Ilara straightened. Set a course. Maximum stealth? We find Vega, or die trying. Through the ruins, the journey took 6 days across hostile space. They passed shattered colonies, floating graveyards of ships, and entire worlds turned to glass. Each time they encountered Qatari patrols, the Eidolon powered down, hiding in asteroid fields. The crew slept in shifts, engines silent, hearts pounding. On the 4th night, Amina sat in the observation deck with Ilara. She spoke softly, eyes lost among the stars. They used our people because they feared us, Captain. They called it control, but it was fear. They know what happens when humanity refuses to die. Ilara nodded slowly. Then we'll remind them. Outpost Vega. When they finally reached Vega's coordinates, the crew expected ruins. Instead, they found life. Faint, flickering, defiant life. The outpost floated inside a debris field, camouflaged among wrecks. Its beacons flashed the old Terran code of resistance. We endure. Alara smiled for the first time in weeks. Open a channel, a gruff voice answered instantly. Unknown ship, identify yourself or be fired upon. Ilara replied, steady and clear. This is Captain Alara Voss, Terran Defense. We come with survivors from Helios. Silence. Then a surprised laugh. By the stars, the Eidolon still flies. Docket Bay 3, Captain. Welcome home. What's left of it? The gathering inside Vega, life clung stubbornly to metal and dust. Hundreds of humans lived there. Soldiers, engineers, children, all rebuilding from scraps. Alara stepped into the command hall. At its center stood Admiral Chen, older, scarred, but unbroken. He saluted sharply. Captain Voss, we heard rumors you were dead. Rumors were premature, Ilara answered. Chen's eyes softened as he saw Amina and Rael. You brought the scientist of Helios. You've done more than survive, you've brought knowledge. Amina bowed her head. Knowledge born of horror, Admiral. The Qatari are merging our DNA with their machines. They're building something far worse than soldiers. Chen's jaw tightened. Then we stop them before they finish. He gestured toward a holographic map. Clusters of hidden human enclaves across the galaxy. These are what remain of us. Scattered fleets, colonies, smugglers, all waiting for a spark. Ilara's eyes narrowed. Then let's be that spark. Forging the resistance for the next weeks, Vega became a forge. Engineers worked day and night repairing ships from scrap. Weapons were built from Qatari wreckage. Drones were reprogrammed. Supply pods turned into fighters. Ilara coordinated every unit with military precision. Rail trained pilots. Briggs drilled ground troops. Amina guided scientists to reverse engineer captured alien tech. In the hangar, Marcus Hale stood beside a new prototype, a human warship refitted with hybrid engines. He smiled proudly. We call her Resolve. Built from Qatari steel, human heart, and a lot of swearing. Ilara ran her hand along the metal hull. She'll do. The signal of defiance one night, as the fleet prepared for launch drills, Ilara and Admiral Chen watched the stars from Vega's control deck. Chen said quietly, When Earth fell, I thought we'd lost the right to call ourselves a people. But seeing this, maybe we were just tempered by fire. Ilara looked at the assembled ships, patched, scarred, yet shining with new light. They took everything from us, she said. But they forgot one thing. Chen raised an eyebrow. And what's that? Ilara smiled faintly. Humans rebuild. Always. With a nod from Chen, Vega's long-range transmitters powered up. Across the galaxy, a message spread. Strong, clear, unmistakably human. To all surviving Terrans, you are not alone. Gather at Vega. Humanity stands again. The dawn before war far away, in the cold halls of a Qatari command ship, the alien warlord Zarkul the Dominant received the transmission. His slit-pupiled eyes narrowed as he listened to the defiant human voice. Foolish creatures, he hissed. They rise again even in ashes. Prepare the fleets. Burn Vega from existence. Back at the outpost, alarms flared as incoming warp signatures appeared on sensors. Ryan looked up in shock. Captain. Qatari Armada inbound. Dozens of ships. Ilara's expression didn't waver. Then it's time, she said. Signal the fleet. The storm begins here. She turned to the crew, her voice steady, strong. For every world they burned, for every soul they stole, today humanity answers. Engines ignited. Weapons powered. The Eidolon led the line once more. The alarms screamed across Outpost Vega as red light washed over metal corridors. Every human aboard knew what that sound meant. War was coming. From the command deck of the Eidolon, Captain Alara Voss stood tall, eyes fixed on the tactical display. Dozens of crimson icons blinked on the holomap. The Qatari Armada had arrived. Commander Jonah Rael spoke quietly, his voice steady despite the tension. They're forming attack wings, Captain. Looks like they've brought carriers, destroyers. Even a dreadnought, Alara didn't flinch. Let them come. Vega's not running. The gathering storm human ships poured out from hidden hangars. patched, rusted, but burning with resolve. The newly rebuilt Resolve, forged from Qatari metal, took the front line beside the Eidolon. Its engines roared to life, streaking blue light across the void. Admiral Chen's voice thundered across every comm channel. "All units, this is Admiral Chen. The Qatari think humanity is finished. Let's remind them we're just getting started." Cheers echoed through static, fierce and unbroken. Inside the fighter bays, pilots strapped in. Sergeant Tara Briggs led her squadron, helmet tucked under one arm. "Remember," she told them, "they're faster, stronger, meaner for it, but they ain't human." That's their weakness. The bay doors opened, and fighters launched like sparks from a forge. First contact, the Qatari dreadnought Varkul's Wrath entered orbit, a beast of black armor and pulsing crimson veins. Alien captains laughed across comms, certain the battle would be short. Then Vega's hidden cannons awoke. Massive plasma lances erupted from the asteroids surrounding the station, tearing through the Qatari vanguard. Explosions bloomed across the stars, silent, brilliant, terrible. Direct hit on 2 destroyers, shouted Ryan from Tactical. Ilara's lips curved in a thin smile. "Good. Let's make them bleed for every inch." The Eidolon surged forward, flanked by the Resolve and 3 frigates. Their combined fire tore into the enemy's formation, scattering fighters like ash in the wind. The cost of defiance, the Qatari countered quickly. Swarms of interceptors broke through Vega's outer defenses, strafing the human lines. One frigate, the Horizon Dawn, took a direct hit and vanished in fire. "Dawn's gone!" cried Marcus Hale, gripping his console. Ilara's jaw tightened. "We don't stop. Every second we hold, Vega lives." In the hangar, Tara's squadron danced through chaos. Laser fire streaked past as she locked onto a Qatari fighter and fired. "Splash 1!" she shouted, spinning her craft through the debris. A voice crackled in her ear, her wingmate Kellen. "They're targeting the station's reactor." Briggs gritted her teeth. "Over my dead body." She dove straight into a cluster of enemy bombers, her ship weaving through explosions. One bomber's missile clipped her wing, alarms blared. Smoke filled her cockpit, but she held course. She hit the bomber head-on, guns blazing, until both ships vanished in a blinding flash. For a moment, silence. Then Rail whispered, "She bought us time." Ilara closed her eyes. "And we'll use it well." Turning the tide as the Qatari fleet pressed in, Amina worked feverishly in the Eidolon's lab. Her hands moved over alien tech salvaged from Helios, part biological, part machine. She'd seen what the Qatari were building, and how to turn it against them. She called the bridge. "Captain, I can overload their dreadnought's neural core, but I'll need to connect through their signal net." Ilara hesitated only a second. "Do it." The Eidolon sensors focused on the Varkul's Wrath. Amina linked the systems, and her console glowed in eerie blue. She whispered, "You turned our people into weapons. Now face what you created." She pressed the command. The dreadnought convulsed. Its organic hull pulsed, lights flickering wildly. Alien screams echoed across open comms as its reactor went critical. Rail's eyes widened. It's tearing itself apart." A massive explosion consumed the dreadnought, lighting the dark like a second sun. Debris rained through the fleet, scattering the remaining Qatari ships. The price of victory for hours. The battle raged. One by one, Qatari vessels broke formation and fled into the void. Humanity had done the impossible. They had won. But the cost was steep. Vega's surface burned. The Horizon Dawn and dozens of fighters were gone, and half the fleet barely held together. In the silence that followed, Ilara stood on the command deck, surrounded by smoke and flickering lights. Her voice was hoarse but steady. "Status." Ryan replied softly. "Qatari retreat confirmed. Vega stands." The crew erupted in exhausted cheers. Some wept. Others just sat in silence, staring at the stars. Admiral Chen appeared on the holoscreen, his face pale but proud. "You've done it, Captain. The first human victory in a decade. You gave them something they didn't think we had left. Hope." Ilara looked at the stars where the dreadnought had died. "Hope isn't what they should fear," she said quietly. Rail frowned. "Then what?" Ilara's eyes hardened. "What comes next?" The aftermath in the days that followed. Humanity celebrated across hidden colonies. Word spread like wildfire. Vega still lives. The Qatari can bleed. Recruitment soared. Old fleets resurfaced. Merchants brought supplies to the resistance. The spark had become a flame. Amina stood beside Alara in the observation deck, watching the remains of the enemy fleet drift into darkness. "They'll come back," Amina said softly. "I know," Alara replied. "And next time we'll be ready." Rael joined them, holding a recovered Qatari datapod. He set it on the console. "I found this in the wreckage of the dreadnought. It's not a war log. It's coordinates." Alara looked up sharply. "Coordinates to what?" Rael's expression turned grim. "Their origin world." The words heard across the stars. That night, the Resistance broadcast a single message across every frequency in known space. A voice, human, fierce, unbroken. "To the Qatari Dominion. You burned our worlds. You enslaved our children. You thought humanity would kneel. You were wrong. Vega stands. Humanity stands. And we are coming." The message echoed through the void. Reaching far beyond Vega, in distant galaxies, alien empires paused and listened. And for the first time in centuries, they felt fear, because when humanity stood alone, the universe finally remembered why. The stars above Vega burned faintly, still haunted by the scars of war. But among the debris and ashes, hope had taken root. Within weeks of the battle, signals poured in from every corner of the galaxy. Hidden colonies, scavenger fleets, human enclaves, thought long dead. One by one, they answered the call. Humanity stands. Now, for the first time in decades, Earth's children gathered under one banner again. Not as survivors, as warriors. The Council of Fire in the command chamber of Outpost Vega, Captain Alara Voss, Admiral Chen, Amina Rael, and Jonah Rael stood around a holographic map. The map showed a single crimson world surrounded by massive fleets. Qatar Prime, the heart of the Dominion. Admiral Chen's voice was grave. "That planet is their origin. Billions of them. Every command, every invasion order, it all starts there." Jonah crossed his arms. "You're suggesting we attack their homeworld?" Ilara's gaze didn't waver. "I'm suggesting we finish what they started." Silence hung for a moment. Amina finally spoke, calm but cold. "They used human DNA to perfect their war machines. They called us raw material. They need to be reminded. We are the fire that burns raw metal into steel." Chen nodded slowly. "Then it's decided. We take the war to Qatar Prime. The Armada rises. Vega's shipyards blazed with light as humanity's first unified fleet was born. Old vessels were reforged, scavenged wrecks rebuilt into new shapes. The Eidolon and Resolve led the core fleet. Behind them flew ships bearing names long thought extinct. Defiance, Ark Royal, Morning Star, Liberty's Call. Each hull was scarred, each engine humming with borrowed alien tech. But every ship carried one unbreakable truth. Humanity refused to die quietly. As the fleet assembled in orbit, Admiral Chen spoke through every intercom. "They came to us as conquerors. They found something greater, resistance. Today we march not for revenge, but for remembrance. Let the stars bear witness. Humanity is coming home." The fleet erupted in thunder as warp engines ignited. The march to Qatar Prime had begun. Through the graveyard of empires, the journey was perilous. The Qatari Dominion controlled entire sectors of space, filled with traps and ambush points. On the Eidolon's bridge, Rael monitored enemy transmissions. "They're mobilizing fleets ahead. They'll try to intercept us before we reach their core." Alara nodded. "Then we cut straight through. Fast and hard." Over the next days, humanity's fleet smashed through Qatari defenses one by one. Each battle was brutal. Entire moons turned to dust. Ships torn apart by alien plasma. But for every human ship that fell, another took its place. The Qatari fought with strength. Humans fought with fury. At Epsilon Gate, a Qatari admiral transmitted a message. "You are a dying breed. Your struggle means nothing." Alara's response was simple. "Then die trying to prove it." Moments later, her fleet's cannons fired, tearing the Qatari formation to pieces. Amina's discovery in the quiet between battles. Amina studied the stolen Qatari datapod again. She found something terrifying. An AI pattern buried within their command code. It wasn't alien. It was human. She stormed onto the bridge. "Captain, the Qatari Prime AI. It's built using data from the Helios experiments. It's partially modeled after human neural scans. Rael frowned. You mean? Yes, she said, voice trembling. They built their god from us. Ilara froze. Then that's our advantage. If it's human at its core, we can reach it. Amina nodded grimly. If we can connect to its network, I might be able to corrupt it from within. But it'll need to be done on Qatar Prime itself. Ilara looked out the viewport, the alien stars burning ahead. Then that's where we go. The shadow before the storm as the fleet neared Qatar Prime. The stars around them shimmered red, the glow of thousands of enemy ships. The Dominion had gathered everything it had left. Admiral Chen's voice came through the calm but final. There's no turning back from this. We either break them here or humanity fades from history. Ilara nodded. Then history better make room. In the distance, the planet loomed. Black oceans, red continents, a sky filled with constant lightning. Orbiting it was the Qatari world engine, a monstrous ring structure that powered their fleets. Rael whispered, "It's beautiful and horrifying." Ilara's eyes hardened. "It's mortal. That's all that matters." Final preparations inside the Eidolon, crews worked without pause. Weapons charged, shields tested. Every fighter loaded. In the hangar, the surviving pilots gathered around the names painted on their ships. Fallen friends, loved ones, heroes. Tara Briggs' name was among them. Rael touched the letters silently, promising himself this would end it. Amina stood by Ilara, holding a data drive. This contains the infiltration code. If I can upload it through the world engine's relay, the Qatari network will collapse. Their ships will lose coordination, maybe even shut down. Ilara nodded. Then our mission is clear. We protect you until you reach that relay. Admiral Chen's fleet fell into formation. 200 human ships against nearly 2,000 Qatari. But fear was gone. Humanity had been tempered into steel. The eve of battle. That night, or what passed for night in deep space, Ilara stood alone in her quarters. A holographic image of Earth shimmered before her, blue and distant like a dream. She whispered, "We lost you once. We won't lose again," a voice behind her, Rael. "Do you think we can win?" Ilara turned to face him, her eyes fierce. "Winning isn't the point, Jonah. Standing is." He smiled faintly. "Then let's stand loud enough for the universe to hear." The alarms began to sound. Qatar Prime was ahead. Ilara put on her command coat and walked toward the bridge. The lights dimmed as the fleet shifted into battle formation. Her voice echoed across every human channel, calm, unyielding, proud. "This is Captain Ilara Voss, Terran Fleet. You've fought, bled, and lost more than anyone should. But today we remind the galaxy who we are. We are humanity, and we do not kneel." Engines roared to life. Thousands of ships moved as one, slicing through the darkness toward Qatar Prime. Ahead lay the greatest battle in human history, and perhaps the last. But in that moment, as the fleet advanced, one truth burned brighter than any star. When humanity stood alone, the universe finally learned fear. The unified human fleet emerged from warp in a blaze of blue light. Before them stretched Qatar Prime, a blood-red planet encircled by black lightning and vast orbital rings. The Dominion's home, the source of every invasion, every massacre, every scream that had echoed across the stars. And now humanity had come to end it. Captain Ilara Voss stood on the bridge of the Eidolon, calm amid the chaos. Her eyes scanned the holographic map. Thousands of Qatari ships blocked their path, forming a living wall of armor and hatred. Admiral Chen's voice filled the calm. "All units, this is it. There will be no retreat, no tomorrow. The stars will remember what happens here." Every pilot, every soldier, every survivor on every ship knew the truth. They weren't fighting to live. They were fighting so that the galaxy would never again forget what it meant to be human. The first strike. The Qatari fleet moved first, unleashing a storm of plasma fire. The darkness of space ignited in violent light as explosions tore through the void. "Ilara! Incoming volleys!" shouted Ryan. "Evasive pattern, Sigma," she ordered. The Eidolon dove through the barrage, shields flaring white. Human ships countered with railgun bursts and torpedoes made from scavenged alien tech. One by one, enemy cruisers fell, their twisted hulls spiraling into Qatar Prime's burning atmosphere. In the chaos, Resolve, the ship forged from Qatari metal, led a spearhead assault. Its commander, Marcus Hale, laughed over the comm. "This one's for Tara Briggs. Let's light their sky." Resolve rammed through an enemy destroyer, detonating both ships in a blinding flash. The fleet cheered, even as tears filled their eyes. The Descentamina Real stood ready at the teleport bay, clutching the infiltration drive. Her mission was clear: reach the world engine and upload the human virus that would cripple the Dominion's AI. Alara turned to her. "This will kill their control systems, but it might kill you too." Amina smiled faintly. "They made their god from human thought, Captain. I'm just returning the favor." Jonah Rail, her brother, clasped her arm. "I'll get you there," he said. The two boarded a shuttle, small, fast, and heavily shielded. As it detached from the Eidolon, Ilara's voice followed them. "For Earth, for every world they burned. Make it count." The heart of the beast. The shuttle pierced Qatar Prime's stormy clouds, lightning flashing around it. Below lay a world of red oceans and black spires, the Dominion's sacred capital. At its center, a vast structure pulsed with light, the world engine half machine, half alive. Qatari interceptors swarmed toward them. Jonah flew through the chaos, weaving between plasma bolts, every move guided by desperation and fury. Amina prepared the uplink. Almost there. Just a few more seconds. A plasma beam grazed the shuttle, alarms screaming. Jonah shouted, "Hold on!" As the craft spiraled, crashing onto a landing platform at the base of the engine. Smoke filled the cabin. Both siblings staggered out, coughing, armed only with rifles and determination. The Qatari soldiers closed in, sleek, armored, relentless. Jonah fired until his weapon overheated, buying Amina the seconds she needed. She slammed the drive into a glowing console and typed furiously. "Come on, connect!" The engine shuddered. Lights flickered. A deep rumbling voice filled the air, cold and mechanical yet eerily human. "I glad remember you." Amina froze. "You shouldn't. I was born from your minds. I am your reflection. Why destroy what you created?" Her voice trembled but stayed defiant. "Because we never built you to rule us." She pressed the final command. "Goodbye." The world engine screamed, a sound that echoed through space itself. Every Qatari ship in orbit began to falter, their systems turning against them. The collapse on the Eidolon. Alarms went wild as enemy ships suddenly powered down. Ryan shouted, "Captain!" "Their fleet's breaking apart. Amina did it." Ilara smiled, just for a heartbeat, before the sensor screen filled with new warnings. "The world engine's core is going critical," Ryan said. "If it blows, the whole system goes with it." Ilara turned to Chen. "Signal every ship. Pull back to safe distance. Humanity's done here." "Not yet," Chen replied. "Not without your shuttle." Ilara's voice cracked. "There's no time." Through the viewport, Qatar Prime began to split apart, red fire tearing across its surface. In its center, the world engine erupted, a sun of wrath and memory. The final transmission as the planet burned. A single signal reached the Eidolon. Amina's voice, calm, fading. "It's done, Captain. The AI's gone, and so are we. Tell Jonah." "He did good." Static swallowed her words. Ilara stood silent for a long time. Then she whispered, "You gave them fear, Amina. You gave us freedom." Moments later, the explosion washed over Qatar Prime, erasing the Dominion forever. The dawn after darkness weeks passed. The human fleet drifted in quiet orbit above what remained of Qatar Prime, now just glowing debris. Admiral Chen addressed the survivors over open comms. "For centuries we were hunted, enslaved, forgotten. But today the galaxy knows our name again. Humanity endures." The stars around them were silent, as if the universe itself listened. On the Eidolon, Ilara watched the sunrise over the fractured world. Riel stood beside her, scarred but alive. He said softly, "It's over." Ilara shook her head. "No, Jonah, it's just beginning. The stars will need rebuilding. Peace needs guardians. And humanity is very good at rebuilding." They stood together, watching a new dawn rise across the void. Not Earth's dawn, but humanity's second birth. Epilogue. The universe remembers centuries later. Travelers from distant civilizations whispered stories around dying campfires. Stories of the species that rose from extinction. Stories of a people who stood against empires and gods alike. They said the stars still bear scars where humanity fought. They said even now the void remembers one truth. When humanity stood alone, the universe finally learned fear.